Good morning, church. David said, I was glad when they asked me to come into the house of the Lord. Do I have a witness? Do I have a witness who is happy to be in God's presence this morning? Praise the Lord. You are welcome to our business and leadership service. And very quickly, we are going to talk about David and Goliath. So let's stick to David, okay? So let me just keep you standing for a little bit as we read some scripture references, so it will give us perspective and context to our conversation today. So we are going to talk about David versus Goliath. And we are going to look at it as a case study for small businesses, small-sized businesses, how you can beat the Goliaths, how you can beat the bigger companies and organizations, okay? So let's look at 1 Samuel 17, 4-7, very quickly. So it says, and there went out a champion out of camp of Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. So what we want to establish here is how big Goliath is, okay? Verse 5. And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. Okay? Verse 6, and he had grapes of brass upon his legs and a target of brass between his shoulders. So that's to tell us how big he is. So let's jump to verse 38. Verse 38. Quickly, and Saul armed David with his arm, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also, he armed him with a coat of mail, the same Goliath was putting on, right? So verse 39 says, and David girded his sword upon his armor, and he said to go for he had not proven it. He has not used it before. He has not tested. He has not won that stuff before, right? And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with this, for I have not proven them. And David put them what? Off. Verse 40 and the last. And he took his staff in his hand and chose his 5 smooth stones. For emphasis, chose. He chose. He chose. Emphasis, he chose. So you have multiple options, but he chose to go with that, okay? And put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near the Philistines. Praise the Lord. So what we want to establish, please, you can have your seat. Thank you, VOG. So what we want to establish here is that when we look at Goliath and when we look at David, definitely the stature doesn't match, right? Everyone believes that Goliath will kill David. Do you agree with me? Do you agree? Okay. Now, how can you as a small business, right, be able to challenge the big businesses? When you look at the story of David and Goliath, you saw that at some point, the men of Israel, they fled because they saw Goliath, right? But David came to challenge him. So let's understand let's see how as a small business you can be able to challenge big businesses, okay? So that's going to be what we are going to be talking about. Okay, so if media will help us so we can get context from the screen. But before they get on board, what I want to say is this. In most cases, we have many of us here who want to do something, but we can't do it because we are limited with resources. Do I have any person here? You are limited with resources. You know what you want to do, but you are limited with what? Resources, and you can't do it. Now also, remember that as for big businesses, which is Goliath, they are not flexible, right? So they have weakness. For small businesses, you are flexible. That means that's a strength. So what we have to establish is the fact that it is not how expensive your strategy is. It is how effective it is. Okay? So I wanted to build on this and then say I am very grateful to be here this morning because this is the platform that bettered me. Okay? This is the platform that bettered me. And I want to say a very big thank you to the leadership of House on the Rock for giving me this privilege to have this conversation and talk with us this morning. So I want us very quickly to say thank you to our pastor, Pastor Annie. You might not understand. I walked in here as a student, and to the glory of God, I can say I've been able to transform the lives of over 10,000 people. I don't want to exaggerate. I've transformed the lives of over 10,000 persons and been able to do global businesses because I walk into this room, right? So, okay, thank you, media. All right, so let's move on. Let's move on. So I want to ask you this. Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to win? Media, please help me. So who do you think is going to win, boxing or karate? Who do you think is going to win? Karate. If you say karate, let me see your hand. Boxing. Okay, so let's move on. If we bring them into this ring and play by the rules of this game, who do you think will win? Boxing. So let's move on. If we bring them into this game, who do you think will win? Karate. So we want to establish the fact that you don't play in every field. You need to identify where you play. And when you watch what David did, David said, I'm not going to play with a sword. I'm going to play with what I know how to play. So mistake number one, okay, so let's move on. Mistake number one is that as a small business, you play in the wrong places, okay? As a small business, if you want to innovate to beat the big businesses, you need to understand that you can't compete them with sword. You can't compete with them with all those armor and all that. So the mistake we make is that we compete based on products and we compete based on price. There is no product you can build today that a big organization cannot build. If you are in the tech space, there is no tech product you are going to build that Google cannot build. Do you agree? So if you are going to compete with them based on that, they will beat you. If I want to compete with crunchies, I'm not going to compete with them from the base of probably tests because they can hire the best people to get the best tests, right? Now, I need to understand how to compete with them. So the mistake we make is that we begin to say our product is cheap, right? So you don't compete here. So the question is, where then do you compete? Okay? So let's move on. Where do you compete? Before I tell you where to compete, what do you need to do before you start competing? What you need to do, one, is that you need to change the game. You need to change the game. Until you change the game, you cannot win. David changed the game. He changed from sword to go into using just stones. Right? So you need to change the game. You need to rewrite the rules. You need to set the boundaries. If you play head on with the big organizations, you lose. So you need to understand that this is the basics for effective strategy. Without this, you are just strategizing for nothing, right? So there is a concept that without vision, strategy is hopeless. So you need to know where you do what? You play. Then how do you play? Okay? So let's talk about how you play. Let's move on. For you to play, you need to play around business models. That is how great companies win. That's how great companies win. You might be hearing business model for the very first time, but this is how big businesses win. Small businesses win and compete based on business models. So you need to understand and discover unique value propositions that are tied to defensible business models that can help you to win. What is business model? What is business model? A business model is how a company does three things very well. Number one, how you create value. When we talk about creating value, we talk about what is your value proposition, what is your promise to the customer. Remember I said how you, I didn't say your product and services. So most of us have products and services, but how we create it is what matters, okay? Why do you create it the way you create it? It is very important to understand that. Now the second aspect is how do you deliver these products? How you deliver the product. So value creation, value delivering, and value capturing. How you do these three things very well, okay? Not product, not pricing. We are not saying that product is not good. You need to tie good product, great product, unique product into a defensible business model. So let's make it a little more practical. All right? Let's look at some examples, importance of business models. Okay? Now, a business model helps you to get into the market. You have a limited resource. How do you get into the market? You want to get into the fashion business. How do you get into the fashion? Basically, what everyone would do is to get money, rent a shop, hire people, begin to sew, begin to market. That's what everyone would do. And it's expensive for you to do that. If you don't have the resource, you can't do that. So how can you do that? So market entry, that's an advantage you have when you understand the concept of business models. Disruptions, discontinuous innovation. How can you disrupt the existing culture and change the pattern? People used to do certain things. You change the way people do it. Differentiation, you differentiate yourself from the market. Defensibility, you can be sure that you can continue to run without people disrupting you because you have a defensible model. Scalable, you can scale very fast. The concept of growth and scaling. The concept of growth and scaling. Most big businesses are growing, they are not scaling, right? So for you to continue to grow, you need to invest more. How can you invest less and continue to grow? The concept of growth and scaling. Then we have valuation. You ask yourself, why is Flutterwave market capitalization more than 5 companies or banks we have in Nigeria? Why? Business models, okay? So let me ask, what do you think is common between these two institutions? Do you believe that marriage is an institution? Okay, so we know Apple, right? Apple is an institution. What do you think is common between the two of them? Anyone? Okay, so because of time, the common thing between them is that when you get married, you are locked in. You are locked in. You cannot just wake up one day and say you are leaving, right? You can't wake up one day and say you want to go because you have made a lot of investment. You have children. You can't just wake up and go. That is the playbook that Apple is playing. It's not products. It's not pricing. It is business model. So let's understand what they are doing. For you to leave your marriage, there is a high switching cost. It's going to pain you. It's going to cost you. So how can you be able to build your business in a way that if someone walks in, it becomes expensive for them to leave? That's a concept. That's a business model playbook that most of these people play, and you think it is because Apple is creating great product and you are using them. You think they are creating product and you are using multiple Apple phones. There is a reason. That's why we say how you create your product and services. We just create products. We don't understand why we create those products. Why are they delivering it the way they deliver it? Why are they making money the way they make it? So we don't just do business because we want to do it that way. We design a business model that can help us to win. And that is what Apple is doing. So let's see quickly how that is happening. Apple's business model is simple. Hardware, software integration that leads to an ecosystem user locked in. That's what they do. They lock you in and you are there. If you have an Apple phone today, it is difficult for you to leave Apple. It is difficult. It is difficult. Now, why? Let me tell you why. when you have an Apple phone, right? What happens is that you begin to download apps, right? The iCloud, the iMessage. You begin to invest there. Your contents are there. So you don't have an option than to remain there. They begin to provide you more services. More services. You begin to stay there. So for you to leave, it means you are going to lose all your content. You're going to lose all the information you have there, right? And it will shock you, because of time, it will shock you if we go in depth to discover what they do. Why are they creating multiple products? There is a reason. It's not because they just want to create, right? The reason is because they need to create the laptops, the Mac, right? They need to create the watch, and they continue to collect those data and tie you in. So you continue to invest there. At the end of the day, you can no longer leave. So it becomes expensive. Remember, hardware, software integration. The hardware is the device, which is the phone. The software is the operating system, which is what? Which is what? What? iOS. Google has what? Android. Now, what happens is that the two biggest operating systems are who? Android and what? iOS. So you don't have an option than to stick with either iOS or you stick with Android. So you cannot leave. Now, do you know that Android is free? Android is free. Android is open source, owned by who? Google. Why is it free? Why are they giving it out free? Why? How you deliver your product, how you make your product matters. There is a reason why they make it free. The reason is that their business model is through advertisement. They go to manufacturing companies, Samsung, Infinix, they all use what? Android. And when you use it, they collect your data and sell as advertisement. If they make it expensive, the barrier of entry becomes higher and they cannot make money through the advertisement. So what we want to establish here is that you need to understand that you don't just wake up and start sewing clothes. You don't just wake up and start selling shoes. You don't just wake up and start opening your shop. There is a reason why you do things the way you do it. That's business models. Okay? So let's move on. So this is what Apple does. How many of us know Nokia? How many of us know Nokia? Anyone use this phone? Did you actually use this phone? So why did they lose the competition? As of 2 days ago, the market capitalization for Nokia is $20 billion. Why Apple is hitting around $2 trillion what? Dollars. That's about 100 times how the mighty has fallen. Why? Because of hardware, software integration. What does it mean? For me, if your Nokia gets spoiled, you can switch to what? Infinix. Do you agree? Why? Because it's still the same Android that powers it. You still have all your data and all that in Android, not on Nokia. But if you have Apple, you are there, you are married to them, you cannot leave. It's going to cost you for you to leave. With that, they become what? Defensible. Does it make sense? Okay. So let's move on. There's a company called, how many of us know Nesto? Nesto. The food drink. Now, at some point, they created a product called Nespresso, right? Nespresso. So it's a machine that allows you to kind of brew coffee at home. Espresso coffee, right? Not all kinds of coffee, right? So their goal is to make sure that this machine gets into your house. Once it gets into your house, you are locked. Because each time you want to take Nespresso coffee, you have to use them. Right? And there is a repeat purchase. So what they did is that they patented the capsule. The capsule is what you plug in to now be able to generate the coffee. And that made them big. The patent lasted for a while and it expired. Then, you know how patent works. So no other person can do the same thing. Only you can continue to sell this. Then when it expired, people started copying it. And that was how this model kind of expired. So business models expires. Your business model can expire. So that's why you need to continue to reinvent yourself. So let's continue to move. Okay, let's not dive deep into this. Let's not dive deep into this. Now, when we look at a coffee company, you can say, how can I reduce my costs? You don't just wake up and say, my product is cheaper. What business model playbook is making your product cheaper? It's not about saying it's cheaper. So I can say I want to start a coffee business and everyone within my space is selling at, let's say, 500. Now I can say I want to start selling at how much? 300. Then why is it cheaper? The reason why it's cheaper is that I'm getting advertisers who advertise on the cup. And they pay me, let's say, 400 naira for that advert on each cup. So I go to advertisers and say, when you advertise on billboards, it is not that effective. People look at their cup when they are taking coffee for almost 20 times. So it's effective. So advertise on our coffee and you can be able to, that becomes your what? Revenue stream. Your revenue stream, right? In this case, your product is cheaper. So you don't say your product is cheaper. There is a playbook that makes it cheaper that most people will not see and someone will go and copy you and lose. Does it make sense? So you need to think hard, right? So what we do basically is we open our shop and we sell the same way we always sell. So if you have your master that settles you, you also repeat the same thing your master is doing because that is a culture, that is a pattern. So how can we begin to think beyond products, beyond price, and begin to think around business models? Okay? All right. So let's move on. So there are great companies we can look at, and you can check out Business Model Navigator to understand how companies are winning through business models. Great companies win through defensible business models, not products, not pricing. We are not saying that they are not important, okay? 2 Sundays ago, Mr. Stanley introduced us to business model canvas, right? For most of us that were here. So very quickly, I will reintroduce you to the business model canvas. The business model canvas, one thing you need to understand is that you don't use it as a checklist. We are going to deliver through social media. We are going to no, you tell a story and you should be able to see how your company, how your business differentiates itself from the environment where you are playing. Okay? So that's what you use this to do. You use it to do what? You use it to communicate your business model. You use it to design your business model. You can also use it to evaluate your competitor's business model so that you can design a competitive business model. And it has 9 components, right? Customer segment, you need to understand who you are selling to, right? Who are you selling to? What value are you bringing to them? Value proposition. What promise are you making to them? So it's not, it is cheap. Everybody is saying our product is cheap. We are fast. Everybody is saying we are fast. You need to understand your core value proposition that people want. What channel are you using to deliver that value to them? How are you making money? Now, when you deliver this product, what kind of relationship is created? When Apple deliver their product to you, the kind of relationship that is created is kind of a marriage relationship, which is a switching cost relationship. It becomes expensive. So you begin to think, how can I create my product, deliver it in a way that a customer can never leave? It becomes difficult for the person to leave. It could be through customer service. Most people say, oh, we had perfect customer service. That is on paper. How are you telling the business model story, implementing it in a way that someone walks into your shop, walks into your space, and the person is locked in? Right? So we have the backstage of it. So it has 2 stages, the front stage and the backstage. The backstage, what are the key resources? What are the assets that you need? What are the assets that you need for you to do what? For you to deliver this value. What are the key activities that you will need to perform to deliver this value? Right? Then you begin to talk about who can leverage your business model to do what you want to do. Like we talked about the advertisement, the coffee advertisement. So advertisers can leverage that business model to do what? Advertise. and then you can capture money through advertisement. Now you talk about cost structure. But because of time, we might not get deep into this. But let's look at a very simple business model story for Apple and see what they do. This is called the value proposition canvas. In most cases, it's difficult for people to design and create their value proposition and understand who they are serving. So this tool allows you to do that, okay? It zooms into your value proposition and help you to create a unique value proposition. But that's not what we are talking about today. So you can go make some research. So let's move on. Now, for every value that is created, there is a pain attached to it. You need to understand that. There's a pain. So there's something called the gain-pain ratio. There's a pain attached to it. So think of every service that you enjoy. There is a pain attached to it. Do you understand? There's a pain attached. So what you need to do is to make sure that you create products that depend for people to access that gain. Okay. So coming to church today, let's start with, are you getting value coming to church? Are you getting value coming to church? Are you getting value? Now, is there any pain you had while coming to church? What's the pain? What? Rain, transportation costs, waking up early. That's a pain. So, in as much that there is gain for you to come here, there is a pain around it. So, when you also design your business model, you put that into consideration, okay? Exactly. So the ratio for the gain is greater for the pain, okay? So let's look at a very quick example. This is, how many of us remember iPod? iPod. You can play music. Now, Steve Jobs says, we are going to give you a device and you have 1,000 songs in your pocket. Great value proposition. But it's not about the product, it's about the business model. He was about to lock you in. So you think it was a product thing. It is not. It is a business model concept. So when you look at their value proposition, they give you 1,000 music in your pocket and you have a seamless music experience. Everyone wants that. And then they will deliver it through their retail stores, which is a channel. They'll deliver it through their retail stores to the mass market. And what happens? They create a relationship which is a switching cost, right? It becomes expensive for you to live. So that is what they are doing here. So you think it's the product. It becomes difficult for you to live. Now, someone came and said, how can we compete? How can we challenge this existing business model? That was how Spotify came on board. How many of us know Spotify? Now, Spotify came on board. Let's go to the next business model canvas. This is their story. So it's not about just listening. The story is that the value proposition here is that they said, okay, remember that there is a pain. Remember the concept of Apple switching costs. For you to live, it will cost you something. Now, Spotify now said, for us to create a value proposition that can compete with them, what do we need to do? We need to make music free. Music became free. So there is no cost for you to live Apple. Do you understand? If you are going to pay, you might think, no, let me remain in iPod. Do you understand? So you can test it. It's easy for you to say, okay, let me go and stream. And then you enjoy it and then you stay. Now they provide you free music, send it to music lovers, then they monetize it through advertisement. So while you listen, you hear adverts. In that case, they disrupted that market. Right? So you need to think around business models. It is not product, it is not pricing. Right? But you understand that you must have a great product that is tied into a unique and defensible business model. Okay? All right, let's move on. So let's quickly do a simple exercise here. Let's do a very simple exercise. Let's say you want to go into fashion business. Almost everyone will say, let me open up a shop and then let me begin to hire people. That's what almost everyone will want to do. But what if we can think around it and say, let's do this thing differently? Then we created a business and we called it Fashion Double. Fashion double. What is the vision? We are looking at a future where stylish clothing will be accessible to everyone at little or no cost. You'll be like, how? Okay? So for you, you remember, it is set of choices. David chose. You can choose anything you want to choose. It's set of choices. So how you approach this depends on how you want to create your products. So what did we do? So let's move on. So what we did here is to say, what if we give you a piece of clothes and you can be able to make it yourself, right? You can be able to, one piece of clothes, you can use it to turn to multiple what? Multiple cloth designs. What if we do that? In this case, we are no longer going to be producing clothes. We are not producing clothes. So you are not, if you go and compete with us as a fashion brand, you are making mistake. That is not the playbook we are playing. What are we doing? We are creating videos that will help people to watch how they can turn a piece of cloth to multiple. So our asset happens to be videos. Our core activities is going to be creating multiple videos. We put it on YouTube. When we send you a piece of cloth, you can go to YouTube and watch how you can turn it into 10 designs. Do you understand? So in this case, you have differentiated yourself. Someone competing with you from the level of fashion is making a mistake. And this is not expensive to start. You don't need any money to start this. Do you agree? You don't need any money to start it. All you need is to partner with someone who can be creating videos for you. So let's talk about the business model story very quickly. Let's move on. Okay, so this is kind of the value proposition and positioning statement. So with this, you can clearly understand what we are doing. So for females passionate about fashion styles, that is who we are targeting. So you need to make sure you understand who. Then we provide simple, affordable pieces of clothes that can be transformed into multiple unique styles, right? With easy to follow, do-it-yourself, illustration videos, which we post on YouTube. So when we give you this, you go there and watch it. So let's move on. So this is a business model story. So the value proposition is free, affordable clothing with multiple styles per piece. So we tell you that if you buy a cloth, you're only limited to that style. So what we are giving you is a piece of device that is we can even give you for free, right? So we are not monetizing it based on the material we are giving you. We are going to monetize it from advertisement from YouTube and people who are going to be watching those videos. So in this case, you are playing a different game. You have changed the game entirely, right? So this is how we think when we are designing businesses, because it becomes difficult for you to play in any market. Almost every market is saturated. Who are you going to compete with? You are coming out from school as a young person, you don't have anybody, and you are thinking that until you get 5 million before you start business. No. Think around business models. Think around gaps. Which gap are you seeing? How can you design something that is low cost and you can be able to test it? So it's not about products. It's not about pricing. It's about business models that allow you to get into the market. You can test. We don't have enough time for us to look at other business model portfolios that can come out from this. Right? So when you look at this, you now see online communities. As we are doing this, we are growing. The online community is growing. That's how we can now monetize it to the advertisers, who becomes our customer segment. Right? Then we can now begin to earn more money, and then say we are no longer going to be the ones to make these videos. Now we can now have people who can make these videos, and as you make them, you take a commission. That is what Facebook is doing today, which they say they are going to launch creators what? They are going to be paying creators, right? Content creators. So they are going to be paying you some percentage. So that is the concept. Where we are no longer creating this content, because if you look at the key activities, we need to continue to create content. So we can give that responsibility to users to do. Facebook, what is Facebook's greatest asset? Content. Content. Why do you go there? Because of content. Why do you go tomorrow? Because the content is changing. Who is creating this content? You and I are the ones creating it, not them. What are they doing? They make sure that the platform for you to continue to create this content is there. So how can you be able to leverage people, give them a great value proposition, and then give them that work to do? In that case, you reduce the cost and focus on one thing, and you win. These are playbooks that companies are using. Anybody can design Facebook. Don't think that nobody cannot build Facebook. Google tried it, they could not. If you know Google Plus, even before Google Plus, they did about 5 and they all failed. Why? Because Facebook model has already become defensible for them to get into. Okay, so we are summarizing. So we can analyze different business model concepts from banking, how we no longer move into banking halls to now bank online. We can talk about telecoms. For you to make calls, MTN, they must set up marks. But today, software, you can make calls through Skype, through WhatsApp. And MTN is losing a lot of money when it comes to call. They now focus their advert on what? Data. Because for you to do anything, you need data. So it's no longer call. Someone disrupted that. Right? So your business can be disrupted. And I will say this, the reason why you are so relaxed in our community here is because we don't have young innovators who are challenging your business model. When you have young people who are challenging your business model, you sit up. That is what is happening in the Western country. Young people are waking up, challenging business models. Someone came up and said that you cannot live in someone's house rather than going to a hotel. How can that happen? Airbnb is worth over $60 billion today. Do you understand? Someone said you don't need to go to a hotel, right? You cannot go to someone's house and stay. No one believed it. But look at what they are today. Okay? So we can look at the concept of Apple, Google, and we talked a little bit about P1. How many of us know P1 real estate marketing? What is their core business model? Affiliates. They have a lot of realtors selling for them. They are almost the biggest real estate marketing company. They don't call themselves real estate company. They call themselves real estate marketing company. I saw their ad in Lagos, and that's what they wrote. The #1 real estate marketing company. That is their core. So what happens is that through affiliates, your affiliate can tell your story. That is why they spread very fast. Now, pay attention. For every value that is created, there is a pain. For you as an innovator, you need to look at the gap where there is pain in those organizations and see how you can provide those solutions. There is no company today that does not have pain when they deliver their value. So what you need to look at is to use your business model canvas to analyze and see where the gap is so that you can do what? Find value propositions that solve that pain. Okay? So why we end, you can test your business model before you deliver it. Okay? You need to test your business model. You don't just start and then you deliver. Let's move on. Okay, so we have come to the point to say that as small businesses, you need to understand that you continue to find new value propositions and defensible business models that can help you compete. Okay? That can help you compete. There is no breakthrough without breaking rules. You have to break the rules. And it takes courage for you to break rules. It takes courage. It takes courage for you to break rules. Thank you for having me. And I believe as I leave your faces, I want you to go and look at your business models and see how you can design something that can create value for our community. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for the privilege. Thank you for the opportunity. Like I said, all that I have become is through this platform. I walked in here as a student, and to the glory of God, I think, let me say it, I've been able to impart nothing less than 20,000 lives. I think I can say it now. I have been able to turn a lot of people to become millionaires and do great jobs. And that is because I walked into this house. I used to steal pastor's content to go and train my people every day, every Saturday. Thank you, sir. Thank you.